This is the CI/CD UX meeting for October 20th, 2021. Couple of one actually announcement FYI I'm going to voice. We're going to have a new UX researcher starting on October 25th. So yay. Will, do you know exactly where the person is going to be located? I know that's in the US Pacific time zone. Then maybe you have more info than I do.
I don't have too much more info. I haven't been told exactly which researcher is going to be over the Verify group. I do know that there's 2 researchers coming in. One is named Ben and one is named Erica. I'm not sure where Ben is based out of, but I know Erica, I think, lives in like the Portland area in, I think, Washington State.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to hear more from Adam then in the coming weeks. So, but that's soon. That's next week. Thanks, Will, for sharing. So, and general announcement just from myself. I'm doing some housekeeping on our research backlog for solution validation, but also the UX debt. Problem validation, UX debt, and UX scorecards. So on the first link, I organized the scorecards per stage group before they were all in the main epic. So just a heads up, next time you create a scorecard, please place it within your stage group epic. Also, when tracking problem validation, make sure you're adding the UX solution validation label. And also I created this tracking epic for each stage group. So I'm trying to find a way for us to not only look at the issues, but stay on top of what's next and when that's going to be scheduled, so that we can have more opportunities to talk about items that overlap with themes across CI/CD. So the second one is an experiment. Please try it out. Let's see if it works, let's see if it's too much process on keeping track of these things or not. And the last one is a CI/CD UX debt. We have if you haven't seen it yet, we have a Periscope dashboard with all the data for our teams. Justin created for me for release, verify, and package. And it shows the number of open issues, but also the time it takes to close our UX debt. So I'm looking at these issues, this board in particular, but also I want to start tracking the work in progress and what's next for UX debt. Since now with Q4, we're going to, for Verify in particular, we have UX debt and UX scorecard recommendations as part of the product KR for Verify. So try to keep track of those so that we have a baseline for the upcoming milestones. Thoughts, questions, comments, please feel free to write them.
Yeah, this is really good effort. Thanks, Diana, for organizing all of this. It's something that I tell myself I will do one day, but I never do. So thank you very much. It'd be really cool if we could have one place where we could have all of these issues and links like organized somehow, but I don't know where that could be. Maybe we could have like a Google Doc that we link in our CI/CD Slack and like pin it there or have it inside the topic or something like that. I don't know, I'm just thinking of like what would be a shortcut to access all of this information and get like an overview of all CI/CD things.
Yeah, I'm working on a handbook update that will have a list that's actually, I'm gonna find here and link it for you after I finish speaking. I want to document this in the handbook and say that how we are contributing to the KPIs. And I'm listing all these epics within the themes or how we are influencing or helping us, the UX department, achieve the FY22 direction. So the handbook is the first thing I thought we could store this information.
Yeah, sounds great, thanks. And then we can use Daniel's process for shortcuts. Sorry, jump in, Daniel.
No problem. Yeah, I was gonna suggest we could at least have the links to the boards or the searches for UX dev issues for each one of the groups
Mm.
after the tables. So the tables show the work in progress, what's being done, what's being completed. But then if you go into the links with the searches, we have all of them to look at.
That's a great idea. So the Periscope board, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll update the issue descriptions. Yeah, and please update them when you have the chance. I'm gonna start checking. I'm gonna try to check beginning of the milestones, right? So when the teams do the planning, and also mid and milestones to see how we are moving forward with these items, but also to see if there's anything that needs an update. Right. Cool. And the cat is really walking in front of the cat.
I just had one other question. The bullet that you have about problem validation, I think that when I clicked into that Epic, it says solution validation, but do we have another one for problem validation?
Yeah, it should be solution validation. Thank you, Gina, for the call out. We actually have, I think, a UX research tracker for the stage groups. Will, maybe you're a bit more up to date on that for the problem validation issues?
I'm not too familiar with that. I just know that we have templates for problem validation and solution validation. I can ask Adam if there's like a specific place where that like should be housed.
I think so. That would be awesome.
Okay.
I know that we have the prioritization issues for first stage group. I'm gonna link here the other one for release. But I think these tracking issues that Adam creates, they're more broad, right? It's problem validation and strategic research. So I'd say, look at these issues. I'm gonna link here, and yeah, will let us know if there is a better place that we can find this information.
Okay.
All right, then over to you, Will.
Okay. So just a couple quick updates. So just the other day, I reviewed Daniel's research questions. I appreciate, Daniel for including me on that and getting some or wanting to get some feedback. So I really appreciate that. Sounds like you've been able to do a couple dry runs, and you've been able to make a lot of progress with that. So really happy to hear about that. I think I also helped out Gina, I forget if it was like a week or two ago, with a user testing study that she launched. Was able to provide some feedback on her screener and her just study like overview and set of questions. And then outside of that, for the release team, I'm helping Kevin Chu. He's basically put together like a list of clients that we could potentially talk to for some questions around release, in particular around like why people are not using GitLab for release and using other kind of competitor tools. So I'm speaking with him a little bit later today about kind of next steps with that, but he's identified a set of maybe 5 or 6 different clients that we could potentially speak to in the coming weeks. And I'll open it up for questions. Otherwise, I'll move it over to Daniel.
All right, thanks for that, Will. Yeah, so on my side, yes, like Will mentioned, he helped me a lot with research questions. This time for the solution validation, more recently on the designs for the environments page. Thanks everyone who left comments and feedbacks on the thread, really appreciate it. It's a really complex design, so I was glad to involve as many people as possible. We started solution validation last week. I had 2 dry runs that went really well. Like the users had it very easy to go over the questions and the prototype, like nothing broke along the way. So I counted those 2 as actual tests, ordered 3 more. But then in the meantime, Will left some comments on the script, so we improved a couple of things. Usertesting.com is super fast, so we already have the 5 tests all done. So this week I'll take the time to analyze and wrap it all up. In parallel, the actual issue, maybe it's nice for me to share my screen real quickly here. I broke down the design already in front-end components. The usability testing is meant to capture like the biggest red flags, but since we have a lot of feedback already from the team, I have lots of confidence in this design. So we proceeded to break down the actual design in front-end components. So the folder, going from the outside in the folder, the environment part of the folder, the deployment, and even the badges. There will definitely be a lot of smaller conversations in each of these to see, okay, what we adopt straight away from pajamas, what really needs to be customized a little bit, and where's the middle ground in that. So yeah, keep you up to date on this conversation whenever relevant. So yeah, on top of that, for this milestone, we have one more issue to improve deployments, and also tackle group level environments, which is the big issue that we've been working towards. So really excited to work on that.
Really great work on this this redesign, Daniel. It's super complex, and you're taking on a pattern that it's not that easy to move forward with it because of the existing problems, right? So I think you're really tackling some of those challenges really well. And I was wondering if you have any tips around setting up a user testing prototype for this and the scenario. Share, since you said that your dry run tests went so well. For me, usually I always find some weird twists and turns and have to change things. So yeah, if you have any tips to share around user testing, how to create successful testing script and prototype, please do. I'll be doing it next week, so that would be helpful.
So for this issue specifically, this redesign, it doesn't really add any new functionality on the page. It's all about like reorganizing what's already there. So I made sure that the script and the questions really focused on, can you find this piece of information? Can you find that piece of information? So what is the status of the environment production? What is the commit ID of this specific deployment, right? Just like where's Waldo kind of test, like find all the pieces that we're looking for, just to make sure that this information is findable and it's understandable and the new designs are easy to navigate. So for me, that's the easiest test to set up, because like you don't have new concepts or new tasks that the user has to absorb. And I think that's what, in my experience, is what works best for unmoderated tests, right? You don't have any new mental model or new workflow that first the user has to understand and then they have to act on, because then there's like 1,000 things that could go wrong. Not to say that I wouldn't do a usability testing like that, but I think this, if you go low level, like as simple as possible on do this task and find this information, I think there's a higher chance of success for an unmoderated test.
So it's, did you show them static mockups or clickable prototype to complete some tasks?
They are clickable, but in like, I try to keep it as simple as possible. So they are clickable in a way that you can open the folder and then open the environment and then open the deployment. But it's all very linear, like just drilling down into the hierarchy. I even like simplified a couple of things. I didn't add tooltips, that kind of thing, because it would be too much. So
Yeah,
keeping the prototype simple
sense.
also helps, like not to break stuff.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, and I also went through the comment that you had put there, and after the feedback that we have provided, you have really, done a lot of work there. And I just wanted to drop that I will be conducting a solution validation for the pipeline index page, but this time I'll be speaking with users, because even though we have mostly rearranged stuff, but we also want to get a better hang of like what are users using those pages for, because that JTBD in itself for us, it's not 100% clear. So we want to, in that research itself, also kind of validate the JTBD that we have associated with those pages, as well as get some insights around how they are using identifiers. So yeah, and if I get any insight, which I think I would, that might help us in the list redesign work, I will share it in that issue and with the team.
Yeah. All right, I'll hand it over to Katie. I'm not sure if Hayana wants to voice some of her comments.
Yeah, I'll voice over her comments. I think also it's a good discussion here. Katie's question are around how to involve the team in early stages of the research and design process, right? What do you do to give the team visibility of your work, and what has worked for you in the past? And if your team is interested in being involved in the validation and also the research process. So Vitika, do you want to voice your comments?
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of a little lost on the agenda. Yeah. So first thing, I've kind of split my item into two parts because I wasn't sure like if Katie is looking at seeking feedback and reviews from the developers, the development team she works with, or the UX team, or both in general. So I've added tips for the UX team. I mostly use the Slack channels, unless it is someone from CI/CD, because we have these recurring meetings, and also we are very much active on each other's issue. That gets easier. But if there's something that I would want eyes from the larger UX team, then Slack is the best place, especially the co-working and the research channels. And in case she's looking at involving devs from the beginning, so one thing that I've learned is, unless you know your team very well and you understand like who's going to pick up what kind of work, you should always loop in the engineering managers, because they make a call and they put you in touch with the right developer who would have knowledge around that area, and it gets pretty smooth after that.
I'm going to voice over what I'm writing here. I think what she asked about, right? If the team is interested or given visibility in the work, I think in general it's important to use multimodal communication, maybe particularly, especially for Katie, right? That she has in a complete different time zone than her teammates, and have standing discussion points, discussion items related to the ongoing design work, but also the research and the results, right? So not wait until the end, or once we uncover some insight to share that with the team, but have a cadence to bring that up with discussion with product managers, but also the team in general. And the last thing, the planning issue. We know that the planning issue is not just for engineers. So if the upcoming research or the upcoming validation items that we'll be working on are in the planning, and they have some dependency, for example, with a developer that needs to help set up an environment or that needs to review a scenario, those tasks should be, in the planning, need to be weighted by the teams. They need to be aware of that. So Katie, if you're watching this later on, have a look at how other designers maybe here in our team are doing planning, and how that issue looks today, see how they are communicating the upcoming research and making the team involved in these initiatives. So over to Daniel to comment.
Yeah, you and Vitika said all the good stuff already, but one thing I would like to add here is that having some redundancy in your communication helps. So of course, it's always a fine line between being redundant and being a little bit annoying. But if you're sharing a design or requesting for feedback on the group channel, it might be worth also mentioning on like the weekly group meeting, just to reinforce. And because some people pay more attention to Slack, some people pay more attention to other channels. So it's always good to cover all your bases and make sure your team and whatever time zone they're at, they can actually see your requests and your designs.
Great input, great feedback. Next point also on Katie is that her team is used to synchronously doing design reviews at a meeting that happens once a month. And she's asking how you do design reviews and how do you get a feedback from your teams in a way that works. So Nadia.
Yeah, so I mostly do design reviews asynchronously in issues. And actually, I don't call them design reviews. I think that kind of feels a bit like I'm presenting designs and then gathering feedback in like a formal way. What I try to do instead usually is just have ongoing communication with the engineers and the product manager and constantly get feedback. And that, I think that works better for staying in touch with the team and really having closer collaboration this way. Sometimes we do sync meetings, but usually I will do a one-on-one with an engineer. So just to catch up on, like, do a deep dive on a certain problem. And also we have a monthly UX plus front end sync where we kind of talk about more like vision and things like that to really align on bigger things. And of course, then there's also our weekly meetings. But sometimes I participate synchronously, sometimes asynchronously, and it still works. Another thing, I really rely on Dove, my product manager, to sometimes communicate my design proposal or ask questions or host a discussion in the weekly meeting if I'm not attending. So I might add my points and links to issues to the agenda and ask Dove to voice it and lead the discussion. And then there's a recording, and then I can ask follow-up questions asynchronously to the participants who were part of the discussion. So that allows me to kind of have more engagement with the team without having to stay up late for the meeting. So that's also a good hack, and also helps your product manager really dive deeper into the design proposal. And this way you kind of have to teach the product manager to present the designs, which is a good exercise too.
Oh, is it me?
Yeah.
Okay. So
sorry, I should have handed it over to you.
It's all right. So my point is not very different from what Nadia mentioned, and I just like added a recent example, but most of the discussions that we have in pipeline execution, it happens in the issues and the MRs. So we have very extensive discussions there, and that really yields because there's so much of historical context when you have to revisit those issues, and you know exactly why those decisions were taken. So it's always the best place.
Thanks. I was just gonna say that my responses align with Nadia and Vitka, but we do have these they're bi-weekly meetings, I believe, for our team on Runner. And a lot of those I try to provide design like updates, I guess, to the team, just because they're not always aware of what's going on the design side. And sometimes those also turn into them giving feedback. So there are times that like that where we're talking synchronously about the designs, but most of the time I try to just keep it to the design management threads. Hi, Anna, if you want to voice yours.
Is that me? Oh, I thought it was Will. Yeah, just to voice that Sunjung, Amelia, and Alexis, they are async design reviews champions. So outside of our stage group, I would say look at the work that they are doing, how they're communicating. And I also linked here the handbook page that talks about design reviews and has a couple of examples of issues where the design critique or the design review was done async for reference. So look into that. And for package in particular, they used to do Think Big sessions. I know that they still do monthly, but they used to do Think Big and Think Small sessions. Maybe this is something for also for Katie to look into and see how she can continue with that ritual with her team. I think it's also a way to get that feedback in a more structured way. Yeah. And Will, you're next.
Yeah, just to build off of what you were saying, even though Sunjung does a lot of like async work, she did include me, I think in the first month that I had started at GitLab. One of the research projects involved basically creating something from scratch. And she had kind of taken a stab at it and put something together, but I was able to meet with her and the PM synchronously, and we just kind of threw out ideas, and she just like on the fly was able to create something and then make it more polished like after the fact. So that was another way that I thought was kind of helpful to get some insight into that design process. Even though it was not pixel perfect or anything, it was really good to see how she works kind of on the spot and makes those quick adjustments. I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Yeah, I'll say it quickly so we stay on time. But same as Nadia and Gina mentioned, getting feedback on issues constantly is mostly what I do. And then usually on issue comments to understand the problem, and then on design management to get feedback on the solution. The two caveats is whenever a problem is too big, too complex, and there's like a bunch of back and forth to understand it, a 20-minute sync meeting with the PM or the dev that has the most knowledge on it is super, super powerful. Like it can save you days of discussions, just sitting down and having them expose a problem and some example in like 15, 20 minutes. So that has been really useful for me. And similarly, if your solution is too large and complex and it's hard to get feedback on it, just recording a 5-minute Loom video and sharing with the team helps communicate something that maybe would need many paragraphs of text to show. So that also helps people absorb your content better.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for the insights. And Katie's next topic is about asking feedback on a MVC proposal. So please have a look when you have the chance. And Nadia, over to you.
Yeah, so I wanted to share a couple issues that we've been working on the pipeline authoring team, and they all relate to one problem. So many of the GitLab CI users want an easy way to retry their downstream pipelines from the main pipeline. So if you have a very complex pipeline configuration, you might have many downstream pipeline plugging into your main pipeline. So the main pipeline triggers all of those downstreams. And currently there's no easy way for you to retry the downstream pipelines without having to go into those pipeline pages. So you would have to actually click into each downstream pipeline to retry it. So we created 3 issues to address this problem, or like different aspects of this problem, in 3 iterations. First, we will be adding a retry button to the trigger job page. Currently, trigger jobs, unlike other jobs, don't have the retry button. So we will bring the retry button to the trigger job page. We will also add another option to trigger jobs to retry the downstream pipelines from there. So we will have a split button to retry the job with 2 options available. So you can click through into this issue to see what it's going to look like. And then we will bubble up that action into the pipeline graph. The reason why we're going to add the action to the pipeline graph last is that our thinking is that the job page needs to be the source of truth for job actions. So this is kind of like the lowest level page for the job, and everything needs to stem from it. If we show some information about the job in the UI, you should still be able, like in some other place, you should still be able to find it in the job page. So we're starting with the job page for that reason, which also makes the implementation a bit easier as well, just because it's easier to change something in the job page layout than in the pipeline graph. And yeah, these issues had lots of upvotes from our customers, so we're excited to address these. And it also aligns with our plans to make downstream pipelines more usable and just generally improve the user experience around downstream pipelines, because usually the users who are heavy users of downstream pipelines are large enterprise customers that we really want to track and make it much easier for their teams to interact with GitLab CI. So let me know if you have any questions or comments. Feel free to comment in those issues and just ping me async. Titika, you're next.
I'm muted. All right. I have two very light topics. The first one is about the community event that I did. It was a strange but nice experience to interface with the Indian GitLab community, or would-be Indian GitLab community for the first time. There are many new people who were introduced to GitLab through the event, and hopefully we will see some converts from there. And it was good to understand like what kind of temperament they have around the product, and what is it that we can that we should be talking more about, promoting more in regards to the product that could attract more community members. And the second one is something that I've already shared in the Slack channels, which is a recording of good practices for reviewing MRs. One thing I wanted to highlight that Jose has some very interesting ideas on doing a series around these reviews, like the practices around reviews. And if there's anything in specific, any problem that you are facing and you feel that has not been covered in the video, please let us know so we can incorporate that in our next video. Yeah, Gina.
Thanks. I will just go quickly through this. The one more of like discussion point that I had, if you all have time to look through it, there was a really large community contribution that was for Runner recently, and it was so big that it was touching a lot of areas of GitLab. So I was trying to break it down to solve it for these different levels because it affected projects, groups, and instances. And what I ended up doing was like separating those out into additional issues. And I asked the contributor to break up the MR, but I guess there's still ongoing discussion about how that's going to work. My question that came out of it though was how we determine what things live in settings today versus if it should stay on the main like table screen, for example. There was like this configuration option that they're trying to add, and it will take up a lot of room with runners because it's, runners today lives in settings and it's like really squished down. There's not a lot of room today. So I was just looking for feedback of if anybody has run into how they determine if something should go in settings or not.
Okay,
I
can
don't know if you want to. Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I looked at the issue from this agenda, and I have been thinking about it. So I've written something, but I don't want to verbalize that. I'll probably go and change my comment. I mean, the points there are valid, that there are just 3 permission levels that actually have the access to change anything related to runners. So you don't have to get deeper than that. It just stops there. The other one, like as a designer, the question that you should be asking is, this solution is like, what problem is it catering to? Like, I see this mostly being applicable and useful for the instance runners because they want a higher security and higher control. But is it valid on more specific runners? Like, do we even need to implement this at the group and project level? Do users want that kind of control with the specific runners, or would they rather just go and quickly register a new one and that won't bother them? Mm-hmm. So, and as far as the where it should be placed, I think settings is the place for adding any kind of configuration, because that's what we have been doing in CI/CD so far. So any kind of configuration, it goes into the settings, and we just try to match the language of the existing sections in the settings. So, I mean, if you see that there's kind of a section that talks about limitations, like adding any kind of limitations, it should probably be placed under that. But I have this strong feeling that this particular solution is most useful only for instance runners and should, I mean, this configuration should be accessible to admins. I mean, you can totally like take it or leave it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I was gonna say, I think that's why I tried to separate them in the first place and tackle instance runners first. The thing is that this request is coming specifically for those who need it for project runners, I think right now, because there are like admins for projects, technically. They're not in the same way that we have the admin view, but they act as admins pretty much. So they would need that type of
maintainer role, is it?
Yes. So they would need that type of like configuration from a project level. So they're like responsible for maintaining runners on a project. So they're considered like the admin of their project.
Got it.
Yeah. But that's one request. So, I mean, it's been hard for me to like go through this and provide feedback, I would say, because it's coming specifically from one customer. Yeah.
And just a sidebar here on the community contributions. They're tough, and usually I think that's what we're seeing, right? That they come with a very complex, weird package. But it's also important that we let the community know that this is how we build GitLab, right? That's how we contribute. We go for the MVC and we break things down. And if the problem is too complex or it's only solving one specific problem, one specific use case, we need to look broader. So I think this process is uncomfortable, and it will continue being uncomfortable because these people are not working the GitLab way. So I think what you did here, Gina, was really awesome, breaking it down and asking these broader questions, right? And the second sidebar is that Michael, Lee, and Pedro, they did they follow up on my efforts and settings last year or this year, I don't know anymore. That was last year. And Catherine did that research. So if you're looking for more information about what is the criteria or why or how we move things to the group settings or the project settings, look at these insights and reach out to either Michael or Pedro for more information. I think they can also help you in that sense, give you some guidelines, right, about behind the rationale for moving things into settings.
Okay, thank you. For the sake of time, the other stuff is just updates. So I'll skip through that.
Awesome. We had a full agenda. So if we didn't get to your point, or if you want to discuss more, please, the cat is, please continue the discussion, I think. And Nadia, I think your point that you added after below the cut line, I think it's a good one for us to follow up async. So I'll love to discuss that one as well, about the milestone planning. Yeah, awesome. All right. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Have a nice week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.